got a chance to see Nosferatu on Christmas Day. Hope you guys had a good Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. But let's talk about the movie right now. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with me as we rant about movies, comic books, and television shows, as well as the occasional board game. I am your host, Frank Zanka. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as a filmmaker. So yeah, let's talk about Nosferatu. I just went, obviously, on Christmas Day at 4 p.m. The theater itself was an AMC, was pretty full. And even at 4 o'clock, so it was like a Friday or Saturday night at 4 o'clock on Christmas. And the theater I was in was pretty full. Again, pretty much just the seat next to me was empty, and that's because I purposely break the thing to be able to put my feet up, even though I have a recliner. I like to fold my legs. But, and then I was worried. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a full thing, and we're going to have cell phones on. And it was occasional, but nothing that I had to worry about. But Nosferatu, I'm a big vampire fan, obviously, because we'll get into my comic here in a second. But, and the cast is great. But, you know, originally when Nosferatu was first announced, my buddy Doug Jones was supposed to play that role. Of course, he's from Hellboy. He plays the Abe, I think, is Abe Sapien. I think that's what it is. Took me a second to remember. So yeah, so this is basically a beat-for-beat retelling of Dracula from Bram Stoker, which I was pretty surprised about. I'm like, I didn't realize that Nosferatu one was purely Dracula, kind of with a little bit of a twist to it. It takes place in Germany rather than London, in Carfax Abbey. So we really don't get to see, you know, the Carfax Abbey type of area. Again, it's more German. So they did a good job with the sets, I thought. It definitely looked more German than it did England. So whatever they found, they did a good job with. But instead of Doug Jones, we had Bill Skarsgård in here, who, of course, now kind of plays these kind of roles. Of course, he was Pennywise in It. And we have Lily Rose Depp, which, of course, is Johnny Depp's daughter. She's obviously been acting for the last 10 years. I haven't seen anything that she's in, unfortunately. This is the first time I've seen her or anything, and she's leading this. So that shows you something. I mean, her acting is decent. You know, she's not wearing really any makeup throughout this entire thing, which obviously would make her look different. And then you have Nicholas Hoult in it, I'm looking forward to seeing him as Lex Luthor. I think he's got a lot of range. That actor's got a lot of range, and he's played everything from like Beast to this to he was also in the one about the food there with Anya Taylor-Joy. And then we have straight out of Craven, we have Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who is completely different in here. I mean, completely different. And then we have Willem Dafoe kind of rounding out the cast. Of course, everybody's name is all different than what it would be in Dracula. Like, instead of Jonathan Harker, his name is Thomas Hutter. And Mina is Ellen Hutter, because they're married already, where in the original Dracula, you know, she was being courted by several people, and, you know, she ends up getting engaged to Jonathan Harker during this whole thing. And Willem Dafoe is basically playing Van Helsing. And then Ralph Ineson, who I also think is very good. He gets little roles here and there, but he's got a generally big role here. He's playing Seward because he has, you know, the insane asylum that he runs and stuff like that. We really don't get to see a Renfield. There is a Renfield in here, but he ends up being the head of the real estate company that Nicholas Hoult works for. Instead of being a completely, of course, in the 1930s version, he is swapped for Jonathan Harker, and he's the one that ends up going to Dracula's castle in the beginning, which technically makes more sense if you think about it, why he would go crazy. But here they have a use of shadows that I really liked. The way his shadow can disembody from himself, and that's how he enters rooms and things to that effect. So that they constantly bring up the fact that he has to be back in his coffin before the cock crows twice or to something to that effect. And of course that comes into things later. But it's basically traditional Dracula, except for the fact that Ellen, of course, like I said, is now married to him, and she's also a psychic. So that's what has drawn him to her, and she has had a relationship with Octo, or whatever his name is, Count Orlok. That's the name of Count Dracula here, is Count Orlok. So she's had a relationship with him for many years. But because now she's getting married, or has been married, or something to that effect, he has now wants to be with her. So he's going to travel across the country. We don't get the brides in here. There's a lot of things that we don't get. So this is written and directed by Robert Eggers, who is the creator of, the director, I think he wrote the other ones too, of The Lighthouse and The Witch, and stuff like that. So, you know, he has a certain gothic style, which I guess would draw him into this type of film. But he is also not a guy that likes pacing. There's no pacing to his shows at all. I mean, I know a lot of people like The Witch, but I thought it was boring. I could barely get through it, and I like Anya Taylor-Joy. I like her a lot, but it's a tough watch. And this will put, unless you're like a big, low energy movie fan, because I call this very low energy. I mean, I was nodding off. It's very, very slow. The pace is like, it's like a low drum. Boom, 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 boom. And it'll just lull you to sleep because there is no pace. You know, if this is your thing, then great. But I don't really recommend this film unless you are a Robert Eggers fan. If you're a fan of that type of pacing, because this is more like watch it at home and watch it in like 3 different sittings. Because it didn't really hold my attention at all. First of all, I knew exactly what was going to happen because it's basically Dracula. And on top of that, and even in Dracula, like the last Dracula that they did, in the early 2000s or whatever, that at least still had this huge battle at the end and stuff like that. None of that here. None. It's basically Lily Rose Depp's. It's her personal battle with him, and there's no physicality to it. It's a mental thing. So without me giving away anything that's specific. So, you know, where we expect to have this battle between him and, you know, with the team and Dracula, it doesn't happen. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. It just doesn't happen. So it's, I don't know. For me, this was not a good film. And I know that everybody's talking Oscar buzz. And yes, because of the acting is very good. They had to pull this movie along. The actors had to pull everything along. They were playing tug of war with the pacing. So how are the actors going to make this interesting? And it's not really, they, of course, were directed to act in a certain way, and they're told to act in, this drony kind of English British type of tone, instead of, being erratic or whatever else. The only person that kind of pulls that off is Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is the only one that has, any kind of gravitas or energy in his lines, especially towards the end. So everybody else is, feels like they're reading off cue cards because they're directed to speak in a very formal tone. So it just doesn't work for what we're doing. And then if you go back and look at Bela Lugosi, or even Christopher Lee, we have a very specific kind of vampire that has to demand respect, where Count Orlok is just there to be creepy. He doesn't really have, he's ugly, he's got pits in his skin, all this stuff. He's not meant to be the person that pulls women to him, that he's like, this this woman's man kind of thing, where he's seducing. He's not a seductor, and because he's basically ugly, and he's very, very, very scary looking. That's for sure. So I don't know. I'm gonna give this film a very average score, maybe like a 6, because of the acting and the sets and the costumes, which are all very, very good. But yeah, that's all I can give it, because also he doesn't turn anyone. Where even in the last vampire movie, Dracula movie, with Winona Ryder, we had that really cool scene with her friend that gets turned, and that also kind of happens with the original 1930s version of Bela Lugosi, where she's turning into a vampire. So we get to see some of that in there, but none of that in here. There's really nothing going on, because again, we don't have the brides, we don't have anybody turning. I don't ever really feel like anybody's really even in trouble, because he brings a plague with him. Again, I don't see how that works, where he's a plague carrier. I don't know. It was all very strange. But it just, it had the pacing, or it has the plot points of Dracula, but it's not Dracula. Dracula's far better, but again, the only thing I liked better was the use of the shadow thing. I really liked that, because of course we have that iconic thing of Nosferatu, of his thing on the wall, his shadow. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I forgot to pause in the middle to talk about my comics and stuff like that. So Merry Christmas, everybody, again. But if you'd like to pick up my new comic, this is Lords of LA issue 2. This is issue 1 here. They are 48 pages. It's a vampire mob set in 1950s Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe is in here. There's plenty of blood, sex, and gore in here as well. That's the main cover for issue 1. And then I have issue 2 here. That's the Katana cover. That is the Helene cover. This is the Samurai cover. And this is the Were-Panther cover. I also have a nude version of this. And then this is the Maryland cover that has the Nosferatu thing on the back wall. So if you'd like a copy, I do sign them. Let me know in the comments section, and I'll reach out to you, or you can email me, which my email is connected to this YouTube channel. Plus, we have, if you're a fan of Timothy Zahn, who created Thrawn for Star Wars, as well as Kevin J. Anderson, who writes for Dune. He also did some Star Wars as well. Brandon Easton, who wrote for Peggy Carter for Marvel. That was a TV show. The cover art is by Matt Wagner, and we're talking about the Green Hornet anthology, just in time for the 50th anniversary of the character. If you'd like a copy, we're going to be launching on Kickstarter. We have 10 other writers of, just amazing talent, all contributing to this. It's going to be a hardcover. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, you can either go to greenhornetnoir.com. It'll take you to the Kickstarter just to get notified when we launch in January, or you can click in the link description below as well. All right. Again, happy holidays to all of you, and thank you for watching all the way through. Remember to give me a like if you can. Give me a thumbs up, and if you can subscribe, please do. Click the little bell, ding, ding. It is free, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.